a business. You've worked hard to build it. DSA Insure. Insurance for interior designers.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of DSA's Life by Design. Today I have as our guest a very talented designer, Paloma Contreras. We're going to be talking all about your career, your new book, and much more. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Arthur. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure and our pleasure. Let's start at the very beginning. Why did you become a designer? Where did this all begin for you?
Well, I have a kind of unorthodox background, I guess, in design, or I've had an unorthodox path, I should say. So I actually majored in Italian and Spanish, So I have a background in languages and subsequently was a high school teacher, a high school Spanish teacher, but I felt a little bit creatively stifled in that career. And so eventually I'll give you sort of the version in a nutshell. It's a very long story. I started a blog in 2007 in the very early aughts of the design world and design blogging world, I should say. And that opened a lot of doors for me. And it helped me to tap into a passion for interior design. I certainly didn't set out to create anything. It really was just a creative outlet for me. And that's what I was seeking at the time. But as luck would have it, people started to take notice, opportunities came my way, and eventually I left that teaching career and would pursue what became my design career. And now I've had my design firm for 10 years.
So you make this change. Obviously, 10 years later, you have a successful business. But when you make the change, how do you build a successful business? How do you look in the mirror and say, what happens next?
Well, it was anyone's guess at the time. It certainly was an exciting time, but kind of scary time, I think, as it is for anybody who's entering into a new career or new industry. Thankfully, because of my blog and the connections and community that I'd made through that outlet, I had a lot of friends who worked as designers and people who were much more established than I was and were very successful in this field. And so I used them as a sounding board for advice and recommendations, and any kind of information they would share with me, I would eat up. So that was very helpful in setting a foundation and understanding the ins and outs of the business end of a design firm. And then, of course, it also helped to have a platform. You know, in my blog, I had a platform of people who liked my style and liked my voice. And so if I didn't have that, I think it would have been a lot harder to get clients in the beginning.
So your book, Dream, Design, Live, is timeless, and it's a must-have for designers and design enthusiasts. You're launching a second book now, and it'll be out by the time this interview is released. Talk about that new book, and also just talk about being an author, the process of that, going from designer to author and being able to juggle the two.
Well, that was a huge coup, a big feather in my cap when I first had the opportunity to write, the first book. At the time, it felt like a very natural progression from my blog, because the first book, Dream, Design, Live, is a little bit more didactic in nature. It's geared towards the design enthusiast, anybody who's passionate about design. And it was really written to offer a lot of valuable takeaways and tangible design advice for the person who might be working on their own home or maybe just starting in their design career. So I wanted it to be very useful in addition to being pretty, because we all have plenty of pretty design books. I needed, I felt like I wanted to write something that was useful to people. And fast forward now to the new classic home, which is my second book that's just been released. This is more of a design tome in the more classical sense, a monograph, if you will, but there's still that didactic or serviceable underlying current throughout this book. So in it, I focus on the intersection between modern and traditional elements, because I always describe my style as a modern take on traditional style. And so it's a fresh approach to a classic point of view that is enduring, hopefully, and feels timeless and interesting and layered. And so I talk about how to achieve that through a few different elements: color, scale, pattern, tension, which I think is incredibly important to any successful interior. And we look at that through a variety of projects. I think there's a dozen projects in the book, and they are all different in architectural style and locale. So we might have a house on the Jersey Shore at the beach, a home in town in Palm Beach, a modern Houston house, a house in the mountains of North Carolina. So they're all very different in vibe and style, but we're able to achieve this balance of seemingly disparate things and that juxtaposition, getting to that really sweet spot where things feel personal and layered and eclectic and interesting in a timeless way. So again, it's useful and offers a lot of tools to the reader, just I think in a more beautiful layout, and I'm super excited for everybody to see it.
Before we started the interview, we had Natasha from the DSA on, and she was raving to you about obviously being a fan and loving your style. And knowing Natasha and how exquisite her style is, if she's raving about your style, you've got to have incredible style. So who are some of your influences? How did you develop this aesthetic and this style?
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say, and Natasha, of course. I really look to the great designers of the last 100 years. And, if my perspective is this modern or fresh take on traditional style, well, then I have to look to the greats of the past, of course. My biggest influence, I think my biggest style icons would be Billy Baldwin and Albert Hadley. I also love the work of so many other designers who came before us, Mark Hampton and Rose Cumming. And I mean, it really could run the gamut, because I love the clean lines of someone like a Billy Baldwin or an Albert Hadley, but then I also love what Sister Parrish was doing, or Madeline de Casting, and playing with pattern and color and being daring and original. So I think that there's so much for any designer, regardless of their aesthetic, to glean from the greats of the past. And what still feels good today obviously is successful for a reason, and there are lots of things that we can study from that. But in terms of contemporary designers, I'm so inspired by my peers. I know that people get overwhelmed by Instagram, but I do think it's an endless fountain of inspiration.
Well, you just touched on Instagram, and obviously earlier touched on your blog, and you've built your firm during the age of social media, which is an advantage, but can also be a disadvantage for many designers. What were some of the learnings that you attribute to your success, and how you were able to use both social media and the internet in general to help build your business?
Well, for me, it was critical, because I don't know what it was like to try to build a business before I had those tools at my fingertips. And being someone who doesn't have a formal background in design, those tools allowed me to build a platform and to disseminate a voice and a message that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. I think if we were all starting from zero and practicing in our respective cities without those tools at our disposal, we would be at a severe disadvantage, because how would people learn about us unless we just had this incredible personal, sphere of influence, if you will, and big social network. So it allows you to cast a wider net. In my case, it's allowed me to reach people beyond my hometown of Houston. We actually do more projects outside of Houston today than we do in our hometown, which is good and, not bad, but it's more challenging, because I've got to get on an airplane more than most people might want to. So I would say it's allowed there to be greater possibilities, which is wonderful. But in terms of the challenges, initially, I mean, people may not have taken me as seriously, I guess, because I started as a blogger and not a formally trained designer. And that's okay. I feel like, over time and through my work, I've been able to prove the naysayers otherwise.
Obviously, everybody has their own path to success in any industry, and you, as you had detailed, have had a very unorthodox entrance into success in design. What are some tips that you would give to a young designer trying to break into the field in order to have the type of success that you have?
Well, I would encourage you to be a sponge and learn everything you can from every resource that you can. Hopefully that means that you have the opportunity to attend design school if that makes sense for where you are in your life. And if it doesn't, then I would highly encourage that person to intern for a designer that they admire and learn as much as you can, not only from the design point of view, but primarily because this is what you don't learn in design school, how to run a business, how to run a successful firm, and how to service your clients in the way that you need to at the level that we're operating at. Those things are invaluable, and you're not going to learn them from a textbook or in a classroom necessarily. So that real life experience is incredibly important. Never stop looking for inspiration. That, I think it was Diana Vreeland who said the eye has to travel, and that doesn't have to be in a foreign land necessarily, as wonderful as that is. Just get out of your office, get out from behind your desk, go observe what's happening in the world, and you will find that you will be inspired at every turn, because there might be a beautiful detail on a pediment on a federal building somewhere downtown, or I don't know, you can find it anywhere. So constantly keep your eyes open, ask questions, learn as much as you can, read books, reach out to people, invest in yourself, and participate in the industry. Connections and relationships are everything in this industry.
I absolutely love that. As a creative, and I'm a creative myself, so I fully understand the ability to collaborate with other creatives so you can learn, see what they're doing that you may not be doing. For you, is there a rewarding collaboration that you've gotten to experience which sticks out and really had a significant influence?
Yes, I mean, there are several I can think of over the years. I've been invited to do some fun things, and more recently, I think a more direct way in which I've collaborated with other creatives is through product design and license collaboration. So that's an avenue of my business that I am hoping to grow more. And for anybody watching, I also would encourage you to have multiple revenue streams in your business so that you can weather whatever comes our way, because it can be kind of a cyclical business. We are a luxury at the end of the day, but I would say my most rewarding so far has been my lighting collaboration with Visual Comfort. So it's a company that I have a history with and have known the people there for a really long time. And lighting just so happens to be one of my favorite categories of furnishings or home decor. So it was really a dream come true to get to flex that creative muscle and create some really beautiful designs and have those sold by a company that I admire.
Do you have an all-time favorite project, for instance, a room or home that you've designed? And what is it about that project that made it your favorite?
Well, that's really difficult. I can think of a few different ones. I don't want to say, because who knows who's tuning in, and I love all of my clients equally. They're all wonderful, but I will say the best clients and the best projects are those in which the client really trusts us and they kind of let go of the reins. And that's harder for some people than it is for others. It's a personality type. And you just have to be able to trust that you are in the right hands and that your designer has your best interest at heart. And when you do that, when my clients do that, they get the best of me. Otherwise, you're still getting good work, but it's never as amazing as when you've been entrusted completely by a client. And, they don't necessarily have to give you full carte blanche, but when someone says, I love what you do, go do it, and I know I'm going to love it, that's the best possible gift that a creative person can get. But a more concrete answer would be more recently my own home. We just moved into a new house earlier this year, and we've just finished it. And that has been really fun to do because it really is just a pure expression of my style without the influence of anybody else's opinion.
Isn't it great when nobody can tell you no?
Yes. Well, I do consult my husband. I do give him a say, and more often than not, he says yes. There have been a few things maybe he wasn't on board with, but we do have pink window treatments in our room, and so he's pretty open-minded.
Obviously, we've had some incredible designers on this series throughout the years, and technology has been a conversation that has become more and more prevalent. And as we talk to these designers, we hear more and more about the different technologies that they use in order to further just build their practice. Is there a technology for you that you can't live without that's been a huge, huge aid to you building your firm?
We probably aren't at the forefront of technology, but we do use, there are certain tools that we use for every project that are indispensable, and that would be Revit. We use Revit for all of our furniture plans and floor plans and cabinetry elevations and those sorts of things. So that's a pretty critical component of each project. And then we also use Studio Designer for all of our back-end office accounting. And aside from that, we also have started doing some 3D rendering that we outsource. And I do that primarily on the product side of things. So I will sketch something, fine tune it, and then work with our renderer to bring that to life in a 3D model that I then present to my manufacturing partners and hopefully see it go to market.
I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, and that is, describe yourself in 5 words.
Oh, goodness. I would say I am, okay, so aesthetically or personality wise?
You have 5 words. You
Okay.
run with how you want to describe yourself.
Okay. Kind, funny, reserved. People would probably say I'm serious, generous.
I like that. Those are 5 great words, and shows you to be a good person, which is great. So congratulations on all of your success. Thank you again for being a guest on DSA's Life by Design. Everybody make sure to check out Paloma's wonderful and inspiring new book. It's called The New Classic Home. By the time you're watching this or listening to it, it's out in bookstores and online. So make sure to check it out. Paloma, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Arthur. It's been a pleasure.
Protect your business. You've worked hard to build it. DSA Insure. Insurance for interior designers.